Here. Okay, so today we're going to cover some more methods and talk about some variable scope. Yesterday we had these these methods that we created. We passed in some arguments, and the method did something with it. In this case, we just printed out to the screen. So I'm going to take and modify this method, this add method, and play with that today a little bit. Remember again that if I run this by itself, what's going to happen? Nothing, because all we did was define or set aside some code to be executed later when we invoke or call that method. So it doesn't do anything. It just created a method and quit. So we want to modify this a little bit. And ideally, methods don't typically print things to the screen. Okay, that's not really a good solution. Maybe if it was a menu method, that might work. But typically, a method does something and gives you back some results. So ideally, if I had a method, I wanted to say puts add of 2 and 2. I don't want the method to print it out to the screen. I want to control that. I want to print out the value to the screen. All right? So right now, if I call just add and run it, it's going to print it to the screen, 4. But I want to control that, so I'm going to say puts. And if I run it, it does the same thing, but I'm calling puts twice here. So I want to make this so that this does the calculation for me, but does not print anything to the screen. Okay? And to do that, I could just say A plus B. That does the calculation, but then it doesn't do anything with it, right? Ideally, we want to use a keyword called return that you'll see in a lot of other languages. Now, Ruby actually does not require this return method, and I'll show you that in a second. But for clarification's sake, I'm going to leave this in. What this does then is takes the two values, adds them together, and then returns that added together quantity to whoever called it. So this entire method gets replaced by this calculation, A plus B. So if I run it now, it's going to say the same. It's going to print 4. But in reality, I could save that as a variable here. Right? Now, what would A have in it? 4. Okay, so I call the method add. I pass 2 goes into the A. The other 2 goes into the B. I can add 2 plus 2 is 4. The return statement ships it back. And you can basically think of it as taking this completely out and replacing it with the value that got returned. Does that make sense? I'm taking the method call out of the equation and replacing it with what was returned from the method. So that assignment looks exactly like A equals 4. I'm taking the 4 that came from my method and I'm stuffing it into my A variable. Oops. All right, then A has what value in it? 4, and it prints out the 4. It's the same thing, but it allows me to do other stuff with this. I could then take this value and I can add some more values to it like this. This becomes what type of variable? What type of value is this expression? It's an integer. You could think of it like an integer because it's getting replaced by what the values are returned from the method. All right? Does that make sense? So if I print it now, I'm going to get 6. 2 gets added to the 4 that the method gave me, stuffed into my variable A, and then I print out my variable A. Okay? Any questions on that? That's called returning a value from a method. And we can return anything we want from the method. I could return hello from my method. What would this value then be? What type of value would that be? That would be a string, and I'm going to try to add 2 with it, and it should crash. All right? I can't convert a number into a string. This is going to be actually the string hello plus 2, and that doesn't work, and it's going to crash right there.
What if you replace the 2 with the 2 with the string?
Yeah, so let's go back to what I had. And I made this a string and this a string like we did yesterday. And the add is type agnostic in Ruby. It doesn't care if I'm adding strings or numbers or even arrays together. It figures out how to do that based on the data that's being passed to the plus operator. So this will return a string of what? No? The string containing the characters 2, 2. Don't think of it as 22. It's not a number anymore. It's a string containing two characters. And then I'm going to try to add 2 to it, and that should still crash because I can't convert it. But I could make this a string, and what would be printed out? 222. Very good. Very good. So depending on what I pass into this method, determines what gets returned back to me. All right? Any questions on that?
If you change that +2 at the end of +2.0, would you convert multiple float?
Yes. Yes, because by default it's going to convert everything to a float up to that point. So 2 goes into A, 2.0 goes into B. It adds them together. It can't add float with a non-float, so it converts everything to floats. Returns a float, so A is a float, and it prints out a float. Does that make sense? That's a lot of going around and around, right? All right, any questions on any of that? All right, so I could have a bigger method. I could call it menu, and I could have it return a bunch of stuff. I could have it return a big long string like 1 view number. Or I could create a variable. We'll call it menu string equals that. And then I might add some stuff to it to add number, subtract number. So what is menu string at the end of this method? No? No, close. You're getting confused by my plus equals shortcut here. No, because of the plus equals, that is the same thing as saying menu string equals menu string plus 2 dot add number. Right, it's going to be one big old long string with all that together. And if I just call menu, what happens to that data? And to make it clear so you understand, it's going to return menu string at the end. So when I call menu right here, that's how I invoke the method. What's going to be printed to the screen? Very good. Nothing. All I did was return a string. So this gets replaced by this entire menu string that got created by my menu method. Right? So this is as if I made this long string with all this stuff in it and did nothing with it. I just threw it out into space. So if I run it, it actually calls the menu method, but it doesn't do anything. I'd have to actually print this out to the screen in order to see the value of what that menu method returned. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Does that make sense? That's a very common error that people see because I typically, you don't want to put print statements in your methods. And later, next quarter, we'll say you don't want to put print statements in your classes. It's the same thing. it'll start to add on top of each other. So we want to make our menus return data and let our main program figure out what to do with that. Let our main program figure out what to do with that. So any questions on what that's doing? All right, how do I make that look nice so that I could print it to the screen? Add a carriage return where? Okay, and how do I add a carriage return? /n, very good. So if I put a /n at the end of my string and run it again, I got a nice little menu. Look at that. Is that cool? And it makes my main program smaller, more concise. I've moved some calculations and things up out of the way of my main program, and my main program becomes less cluttered with all of this code. So that's what I'm talking about. These are building blocks that I can add, and later on I could take this same method and just change some of this information here, and my method is the same. My menu is going to work the same. All right? So now, how would I use this method to let's add a quit. How would I modify my main program to utilize this method so that it printed to the screen and waited for user input to choose the selection, like you've done before, like your rock, paper, scissors?
Add a parameter to the menu definition.
Pardon me?
Add parameters to the menu definition.
We could, but let's just use it as it sits now. How would I change this? All right, I need to have a user choice equals something, right? And then I do a while loop. I could do a while user choice is what? Not equal to 4. Do some stuff. And what is that stuff that I want to do? Well, first I want to print out the menu. And then I want to get the value from the user again, right? So I'm going to store user choice equals gets dot what? QI, okay, good. I'm going to convert it to an integer. And this is now a loop. And my loop is a lot simpler now, right? I'm just calling this menu block. My menu block doesn't have all this other garbage inside of it, and it makes my code easier to understand. This is my main program, so I'm going to say main program is separated from all of my methods that I've created up here. So let's run this puppy. And it's sitting here waiting. And so I hit a 1. It comes back around and prints out the menu again. 2, prints a menu. 3, prints a menu. 4, quits. All right? And I know it quit because it says process finished. That's how I know it quit. All right? That was all right. So, but my main block here is very simplified now, right? I don't have all this clutter in my main program, and it makes the logic of my main program easier to see. Then I might have a case statement. Remember, we did a case statement or a bunch of if statements. If user choice equals 1, then add some numbers. Else, whatever. Else if user choice equals 2. Oh, this shows me also, I've noticed in some of the grading, people are a little sloppy in putting these spaces next to the equal signs, and so they squish them up like this and indiscriminately. I guess my choice is that you have a space around the equal sign on both sides. If not, if you want to introduce your own style, I know some people do this. I think it's a lot harder to read, but be consistent. Either have spaces around it or not, don't do this kind of stuff. It makes it looks sloppy. It looks just bad. So I will circle those. I don't take points off for it, but I usually circle those. It's like a misspelling to me, a misspelling of a word. So don't do that. What was my other one? Subtract. Oh, that was view number. View.
Double click the view to select it, and then you add it to the rest of it. How did you do that?
I triple clicked to select the whole line, and then I copied and triple clicked again to paste. Control V, Control C,
It looked
Control.
like you selected view, and then added the word, whatever was after it, to your selection.
Oh, let's see what I did. What I did was I selected add sum and then started typing view.
Yeah, you double clicked it, select add, and then type the add.
And then I drug my mouse to the right and it selects the next word. That's just a shortcut that you learn after editing a lot of text. Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good one.
I like those.
Shortcuts are good. All right, so we say puts, I don't know. We'll just leave it like that. So this is my new program. I can say 1, and it says viewing numbers. 2, subtracting, add some numbers. 4, quits. But you see that the use of this menu method now makes my code easier to read. It's a lot simpler. I take the whole idea of drawing the menu every time out of that equation. And if I want to modify something, I come up to my method here, and I modify, add something in here. Maybe I want the quit to have 2 lines in it. So it separates it out from the rest of the functionality, etc. All right? Any questions on that so far? All right. So now let's go with what David was saying. We can make this, since this is done so often, this type of a while loop is done so often, wouldn't it be nice if my menu could return, actually query the user for the value and have it return to me the number they chose? Right? So I could modify this and have it return not return the menu string. Let's have it puts it, because there's no other way to do that yet. And then have it prompt the user, enter a menu choice in the way I like to do that. And then we do a get, right? We're going to get a value from the user, and we're going to 2i it into an integer. And we want our menu method to just return that value. So I can just return, because this is going to be some value from the computer keyboard, and I want to return that to whoever called my menu method. All right? Now I don't have to say puts anymore. My menu is going to do that for me, and it is going to do the user choice. So all I have to do is say user choice equals menu. All right, so let's see what's happening here. The menu is getting called. That prints out the values to the screen. Then it prints out a prompt and gets a value from the user. That value is converted to an integer and returned to whoever called my menu. So the end result of this gets replaced by what? An integer of some number between 1 and 4, right? So the user choice it's the same as saying user choice equals something. All right? So having the menu there makes my code even simpler, and it works the same way. Quit. So I'm still checking the values in my main program to see what they want to do, but I'm getting all that data up in my main menu program. So you can see there's 1,000 ways of writing these things. In my code style that I wrote, I have a menu program that I wrote that's a method that is easily configured. I think it uses arrays or something. I don't remember now. But there's lots of ways to create these kind of methods. And notice I didn't have to pass anything into my menu either. It only returned values. So there's multiple ways to create these methods. Things that have parameters, things that don't, things that return something, things that don't, etc. All right? Any questions on any of that? If you didn't press 4, I don't know. I'd have to rewrite it completely, because I like to see my menu every time. And the reason I do this is I've had several people in the past write the menu the first time, and then they just ask for user choice. And if you have a bunch of them, the menu scrolls off the screen. I have no idea what the menu choice is anymore. So I have to scroll back up the line and find out what the menu was. So this is the way I highly recommend that you write it anyway. So I wouldn't rewrite it any other way. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. I mean, we could do that. We just add a new line up here so it looks a little better. Well, that's going to put it beforehand, so this will actually work pretty good. So I say I do that on purpose because I separate, when you have a long menu of 7 or 8 items, it separates out the quit as something different than the rest of the functionality. But yeah, you can do that if you want. Yeah, whatever. That's a style thing. So yeah.
Can you make it so that
I can do anything.
you don't have to press enter each time? Like if you press 3, there's
That's a lot more difficult. That's significantly difficult. So no, we won't even get into that. That gets into the way that the Windows itself handles key presses, and you have to query a Windows method to get that value and stuff. It's a lot more difficult. So no. I've asked that myself. It's possible. It's just not that easy at all. Any other questions, Stephen?
Oh no, I was just thinking about the drag and drop. I can drag and drop something like that.
See, in C# you drag a menu on the screen and you're done. You don't have to do anything, right? So I understand that. This is real.
Power right there.
This is real hard programming, hardcore programming. All right. Well, again, tomorrow's our pre-reg day, so I'll stop this.